get some of these people who are really killing it, who are at the top of their sales game, who could run a presentation with anybody, cold call anybody, cold email anybody, and perform above average. Ask them if they learned that in a month. I guarantee you they didn't,
1, 2, 3, 4.
Medical Sales Leader, a show where we talk all about the modern methods of mastering medical sales. Because if you're still doing medical sales like you were 12 years ago, you're still doing medical sales like you were 12 years ago. And today I have a really wonderful guest. His name is Chris Bogue, and he's one of my favorite people when it comes to what we're going to talk about today, which is about performing well and really reaching your customers and building those relationships on video. So if you've ever wondered, thought about, been nervous about selling on video, Chris is the man. And so today he's going to share with us some of his best tips. We're going to talk a little bit about the course, hopefully, that he just launched, and how you can gain access to those hard to reach, untouchable customers by using your phone and video. So Chris, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here, Claire.
So let's start with sort of the origination of how you got in this business, because I think that for a lot of us who are still in the generation of, we grew up with a time where technology and video wasn't really a thing yet. And now it's something that we use every single day. It's a huge transition for the majority of people who are in medical sales, in management roles and up. And even in, if you've been in the industry for 10 years, video is now here to stay. And so I'd love to hear what really drew you to using video in a business sense. Why did you start using it for sales in the first place?
Yeah, so great question. I got on video pretty much by accident. I did not plan to do this. I was selling education technology at the time to universities. So universities, they are sprawling bureaucracies, each with their own, history, and they're complicated organizations to sell into. There's a tenure track. The people at the top of the chain say what goes. A little trick about education: the longer someone's title is, the less important they are. If you see somebody who's like specialist for the blah blah blah, they're not as important as the person whose name is just professor.
Mm-hmm.
If the professors don't like you, you're pretty much doomed. And as a seller, that's rough, because it's a profession where they're not changing decision makers a lot.
Yeah,
you're not going to be lucky and they're all of a sudden going to replace their top professor. Now you got a fresh shot. If that person doesn't like you, or they don't trust your company, or they're not answering your phone calls or emails, you're kind of behind the 8 ball. Mm-hmm. And it's a difficult sale because these are large institutions that are not designed to change quickly. And even worse, at the time when I was doing it, it was right before COVID happened, so I was used to the 3 main methods to reach my prospects were the phone, calling their office, visiting them on campus, or visiting them at an educational conference. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, all our conferences were canceled, our flights were canceled. You cannot go visit them on campus anymore. And guess what? They're working from home, so nobody's there answering phones in the office anymore. So it's like, on top of that, it's like I had small territory, small lead list. You did not have a lot of people to reach out to. So I had to get inventive, and I found the solution to this was just getting on video. And it's this really weird democratizing thing where everybody has this incredibly sophisticated camera on them right now. We all own, like, even an iPhone 7 will give you incredibly professional looking camera quality. Mm-hmm. But nobody ever figured out how to do this for sales yet. It's not something they teach you in business school. It's not something MBAs learn. Right. So I just started experimenting with it. I started getting on camera, I started coaching others to get on camera. I had a diverse group of people working with me. So I had, different account managers, different backgrounds, and I discovered that it was like, oh, actually, it's very effective to just jump on camera for 30 seconds and talk directly to the prospects. And all of a sudden I was getting meetings with all these people who'd been ignoring us for years. And I realized like, oh, wow, it is this really powerful way to like just humanize yourself. People don't trust institutions, they don't trust celebrities, they certainly don't trust advertisers and marketers, but they trust the people they interact with on their phone. This is the screen where they interact with their children and their spouses, and this is where they go and they spend too much time watching Netflix. And all of a sudden, if you're a face on their screen and you're talking about the things they care about, you just become part of their consciousness. And then when you pick up the phone and call them, now you're not this pushy salesperson who's trying to steal their time. You're that person who made them think, because you got in there. And again, nobody knows how to do this yet because there's nobody who's explaining how to do it except me. So I'm like, great, I'll teach everybody to do this now.
I'm so glad you are. It's, video to me feels like the great equalizer, because it doesn't matter if you have a C on your title, doesn't matter if you're new to the workforce or if you're not in the workforce. It is so awkward and makes you feel very vulnerable in the beginning. And I remember somebody telling me a long time ago, because now I do a lot of video for work, and I never thought that that would be reachable on a regular basis. And I remember somebody telling me the only way to get comfortable on video is getting the reps in. So it gives me hope, because I feel that's very similar with selling in general, in a different way. It's one of those things that you've got to practice and you've got to flub every once in a while and you've got to make the mistakes so you fix them. So, what are some of the things, if you were to say, okay, if you're just brave enough to try video this week, what are some of the things that you see people doing that they shouldn't, or some things that you see that people should do?
Yeah, so this is a great question, because I take issue with a lot of the video training that I see out there for sellers. It is my personal belief, as someone who trains people on this, that we get too obsessed with needing to show the prospect something. What you see a lot of people doing is, a lot of these video programs have like a screen share option. So what people will do is they will make themselves very small. They're like on the little corner of the screen in a little circle, and they're showing you their app. And they're like, hey, Claire, here's my app. It does this and it does this, and you could use it to do this and you could use it to do that. And then people watch 10% of the video and don't respond. And the sellers go, gee, I don't think video works. And, it's like, it almost sounds too obvious. So I don't want to like insult anybody here, but I'm sitting here being like, okay, you sent that person a product demo, but they didn't ask for a product demo, and then you're in this unfortunate situation where you've got the prospect's attention. Maybe this is the only chance you have to break through in there, but you're just describing something they could have seen on your website. And the person watches for 10 seconds and goes, okay, salesperson selling me something, I don't need to watch this. What I suggest sellers do is, you're sending, a 30-second video about your prospect, and you always want to deliver it to the person. I am talking to Claire. I'm sending a video to Claire. I say, hey, Claire, here's why I'm reaching out to you. And I usually start by talking about that person's goals or that person's values. And these are usually pretty easy to find. These are things you can find in mission statements, in press releases. Organizations like to be upfront with what their values are. So that's almost always where I start from. It's, hey, I know you value this, and I see a lot of alignment. This is what I value as well. And I know this is your goal as an organization. And here's this elephant in the room problem that I help people with. And I'd like to have a conversation with you about that, you know, and I'm not sitting here showing my product. I'm not explaining everything I do. I'm being interested in them. I'm noticing them the way they want to be noticed. And then I'm making it easy to meet with me, and I'm building a little bit of curiosity, you know, because once you actually get that sales meeting, you get all these extra powers. You know, you have the power to show them data. You have the power to demonstrate the product. You have the power to ask them questions that are typically inappropriate. You can ask them about budgets. You can ask them about course corrections and mistakes that they've made, but you can't do that until they let you in the door first. There's a term I really like from Nick Thickett where he calls it the vampire sales rule. It's just like a vampire. They have to let you in before you can do anything, you know?
Yeah, I like that.
So it's like, yeah, it's a video about them. And 99% of people sending videos in sales are not doing that. You know, it is such a simple thing to be interested in the other person. And especially when you're talking about medical sales, or again, I was in university sales, so most of these people had PhDs.
Yeah.
And the seller tells himself, you know what? I don't have a PhD, so what could I possibly offer this person? You know, why would they ever want to talk to someone like me? And like, you have to realize when you're reaching out to a person who's educated or affluent or whatever, they don't necessarily see themselves that way. You know, they're thinking about how they have to sell their summer home because it was a bad investment, you know, and they're thinking about this new process that they rolled out that's not working the way they wanted it to, you know, and they've got these frustrations. Their spouse isn't listening to them, whatever it may be. If you show up as a person who's open and attentive, all they see is possibility in you, you know, and if you do your homework and you're talking about what they actually care about, they're not going to go Google how educated you are. They're like, oh, wow, this person's actually talking about the things that I care about, you know, and then you call them, you email them, you knock their door, whatever. They're not going to slam the door in your face and be rude about it. Like, even if it's not a great time, even if it's not what they're looking for right now, usually they'll let you know, you know, and that's what half of sales is like, okay, you know, it's not the right time right now. Well, when is the right time? When do you evaluate decisions like this? When do you talk to vendors? Let's get that process started the right way, you know? And again, I found it's just this shortcut where it's like, you need to build credibility. There's nothing that builds credibility faster than looking someone in the eye, even virtually, and showing them that you know something about them.
Brilliant point. You're looking somebody in the eye and you're skipping those levels of trust building, right? I mean, instead of it taking 4 emails or 4 random, you know, times of bumping into each other, getting to be with someone, like you said, on the device we're holding 90% of our day for everything else is bonding, I think. And it's what I like about the way that you teach this and the way that you talk about doing sales in general is that there's a lot of sales theory out there, and there's a lot of tactics where we're trying to slyly say something, but not really. And we're trying to sell, but pretend we're not salespeople. And I think that really just becomes sort of a vicious cycle where people who are in sales can feel bad about what they're doing. And it's a shame. Because in this case, for a lot of the people who are listening to the show right now, and thank you for doing so, you know, we're in medical sales. That means that, you know, in 10, 15 years, when I need a hip replacement, those doctors, should the medical sales people perform well, will have the most modern technology. My grandmother will get the best care if she needs to go in and have her lungs get an MRI. So it's a valiant thing to be in sales. And I think that the way that you go about it, with being very straightforward with the elephant in the room, let's talk about what your goals are. And I see this problem happening in the industry doesn't make sense to chat further really takes the pressure off of feeling salesy or pushing, because it's just having a real conversation in a next to normal way, right? It's next to being in a coffee shop with them when you're on video.
Yeah, you have to own it. And so much of sales training that I disagree with is about like evasiveness. Like,
Yes.
oh, I'm not gonna tell you what I'm doing until you set this meeting with me.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you're dealing with doctors, you're dealing with medical professionals. Like when they're telling you that they're busy, they're not lying. You know, I've always learned it's like if somebody tells you it's a bad time, believe them. I feel like so much of traditional sales tactics are like you're trying to outwit the buyer.
Yes.
And buyers are smart. You know, they know what that means. They know you're asking, oh, how about 7 minutes on the calendar?
Mm-hmm.
They know you're going to take more than 7 minutes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of enterprise sales, you know, so if you're an enterprise seller, you have to worry if you step out of line, you might get blacklisted. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you're trying to sell to a big organization like Microsoft and you're not on their approved vendors list, you get on the blacklist, all of a sudden that company you work for is not allowed to sell to them anymore. You're probably going to get fired, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So all these salespeople are trying to figure out how to like be sly and be coy and how to talk your way around these people. Where I suggest, again, one, you spend a couple minutes on their mission statement and you see what they value. And then you find the person to go to and you make a video being like, look, I'm reaching out to you because I want to start this process.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get this started right. I know you value this. I know this is where you're taking the organization. And someday I'd like to be able to speak with you about that. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm reaching out to formally request information about your vendor list and what I can do, you know, to build that trust with you. And again, I am not trying to outwit them. I am just coming out here, but I'm owning it, you know, and I'm showing them that respect and I'm being like, hey, I don't want to do this wrong, but I think I have something to offer you. You know, I think I can help you get to where you're going. So yeah, please respond to this. I'd love to hear where we can go from there, you know, and the buyer is in control. This is the thing we constantly see. This drives sales leaders nuts because sometimes the buyer is just like, I want a demo. And they're like, well, we're going to have an SDR qualify you. And it's like, the buyer is in control. They're going to buy when they want to buy. As a salesperson, you need to be in control of the few things you can control. Mm-hmm. And one of those is your first impression. You know, are you going to come? Are you going to interrupt them in the middle of dinner and they say, nope, I'm not interested? You'd be like, oh, can I just have something? Is that really how you want your first interaction to be? Them pushing you off and you desperately trying not to let them shut the door on you? Or do you want to show up as the most confident, relaxed, relevant, interested, and helpful version of yourself that you can be? Because there's a chance that person isn't ready to buy, you know? But if you send that video, let's say they don't even respond to it. You send that video, you're like, hey, I'm Claire. I want to do this the right way. I want to get, you know, on your process. Or you figure out information about your process. A couple months later, if they are talking to vendors and you get back in touch with them and they go, look at Claire, what was the last thing she sent me? Oh, was it a pushy, you know, misleading email where she wasn't being upfront with her intentions? Or is this an intelligent, respectful person who took the time to actually reach out to me? You know, I have all the time, people will ignore my videos and then 8 months later, they watch it, you know?
Yeah.
And I can pick it right up because I almost always have the same call to action. I end the video and I say, if you're interested in chatting with me, respond to this message with anything. If you send me a thumbs up emoji, I can send you some available times so you could choose one that's convenient for you. And if this is not in your wheelhouse, just let me know. You know, I won't contact you this way anymore. I don't take it personally. Let me know. And no matter what you decide, I appreciate you watching the video. You know, the beauty of that is 3 months later, they send me a thumbs up. I send them some times. We're back off to the races. But salespeople will tell you to do all these ridiculous things. They're like, send a breakup email. Send an email being like, I reached out to you 6 times.
Yes.
And you didn't respond. I guess I'm going to have to go away forever.
Right.
Like, they don't believe that, and they didn't want to meet with you in the first place. And now the very worst part is if they change their mind and they decide they actually do want to meet with you, now you made it awkward. Now you did this, oh, I guess I'm going to walk away forever. You know, whereas I really leave it open. I'm just kind of opening the door and saying like, hey, I think I might have something you're interested in checking it out. I'm interested in you. You know, and it's like my job as a seller is not to sell everybody at all times. It's to open the door of communication and keep it open. Because when they are talking to vendors, when they are talking to, you know, like they are seeking out what I'm selling, I want the chance to speak to them. I want to be invited into the room. And it's a long game. Anybody who's done sales knows you're playing the long game. You know, what you never want to do though is break that trust and get them to shut the door. Because now you're backwards. Now you're at less than zero. You're going to need to pull a rabbit out of a hat and work really hard just to get back to zero, just to be a person that they're not actively rejecting every time they see your name pop up.
You know, for those listening and they're thinking, okay, I'll try it. What are some things not to do?
I say start small. Sometimes people are like, I'm going to go send 100 videos. Well, that's hard. You know,
also you'll be exhausted.
Yeah. I recommend, like, I spend more time making the list than I do filming the videos. My videos are very short. Sometimes I'm sending 15, 30-second videos, but I'll make a list where it's like, it's a similar buyer type, you know, similar buyer persona. Maybe it's similar size business. You know, maybe they're managing a budget around the same size. Maybe it's by territory. Maybe I'm going after all, you know, hospitals in one state. Whatever it is, I'm going to try to get 5 of these filmed in one sitting. You know, or I say beginner mode is 3, you know, but I always start and it's like, let's just get 5 out back to back to back, you know, and then send them out and see how it does. And I say, don't go for your top accounts first. You know, I have a classification system for my leads. It's either green, yellow, or red. Green is someone who is a greater than 50% chance of speaking with me. Maybe I'm already working with a colleague of theirs. You know, maybe we've already had some pleasant exchange in the past. You know, maybe they bought from me in the past. Whatever. They're a green lead. They're more than 50% likely. A yellow lead is a total coin flip. I have no idea. I know they fit my ICP. I know they would be good for my product. They've not signaled to me one way or another. And then there's the red leads, which are the people that have already told me no. So less than 50% chance. So a lot of sales leaders will tell you, oh, if they're ignoring you and hanging up on you, go send them a video. I don't do that. You know, that bucket might get put into a more kind of general kind of outreach. But it's like, if I'm going after my VIPs, I want a mix of green and yellow. You know, it's like, okay, this person is a greater than 50% chance. Well, then why aren't they talking to me already? You know, what do I got to do to get them into the pipeline? And then yellow, you want to see how your message plays with people that don't have any particular predisposition for you. And, you know, I do recommend, I have a course about this. I do recommend don't go video immediately. I usually like, there's a number of techniques you can do. If they're on LinkedIn, I connect with them on LinkedIn. You can interact with a person's content. You know, sometimes it's like I've met them in person before. But it's like, I have some little touch point beforehand, and then send out 5 videos and see how they perform. And you know, it's an interesting thing because there's no magic words. You know, I always say what I mostly teach is like, how do you talk to the camera? You know, do you speak to the camera like an equal? And it takes practice, you know, and I've had coaching clients where we're doing one-on-one stuff. And again, I get them to come up with the list. I'm like, tell me the name. Okay, this is Dr. Jones. All right, I'm going to turn off the camera right now. You're not going to see me, but I'm going to start 60 seconds and just talk to Dr. Jones. What would you say if she was in the room with you right now? You know, and always the same thing happens. They do their first take and I stop and I'm a coach. So the first question I go is, what did you feel about that? How'd you feel about
Right.
that performance?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think happened in there? And then I give my perspective. But usually what happens is they turn on the camera and they talk about themselves for 60 seconds,
Mm.
and they talk about their product. They talk about how much money they save or whatever. And I go, okay, let's try it again. I want you to focus exclusively on Dr. Jones. You're
Mm-hmm.
talking about her, and again, I try to like actually imagine that person sitting in the room with me. And
Mm.
I always tell them, like, pretend you are in their home drinking coffee with them,
Yeah.
because you are. Like, there's a high likelihood this person is sitting in pajama pants in their home right now, So
Yes.
the idea is you want to simulate just one-on-one human conversation. And
Yeah.
this sounds so obvious as the words are coming out of my mouth, but I really, if you watch how sales trainers teach, they're teaching you to do a presentation, they're teaching you to be big on stage and be loud so you can hit the people in the back of the room. And I'm like, gang, these microphones that we have are so sensitive, and
Please don't yell into them.
no, you don't need to. And if you're a warm personality, HD cameras pick up on all these subtle movements of the eyes, and if you're a caring person, if you're a person with high emotional intelligence, which is what most people in sales are, if you're good at sales, it's because you're good at talking to people, you're good at listening, you're good at reading cues. I would say attentiveness is the hallmark of quality. You pay for a coach, you pay for a trainer, you go to a fine dining restaurant, you are paying for someone to give you their full attention. And when you are giving your full attention to the camera, that's powerful. You don't even have to be saying anything. If I'm just sitting there, just looking fully at you and I'm talking about you, I'm giving you so much more than 99% of the people in your life give you, including possibly your friends and family.
Sad but true. Yeah.
No, that's
right.
the thing, is like these
Yeah.
brilliant people, these doctors who are saving lives, who are, they're working very hard on things that only a very small percentage of people can understand. And they're carrying all this stress around. They go home and their spouse is like, honey, I can't listen to you talk about work. Like, we're gonna watch Paw Patrol with the kids, and then we're gonna go on a walk and try to talk about anything other than work for 10 seconds,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
these are the things that's on that person's mind. And when you give them an opportunity to talk about what's on their mind, that's not what they usually get. People are asking them for their effort and their time and their emotion and all this. And it's like, yeah, I'm showing up just interested in them. I noticed them. And, I know I'm rambling now, but it's like, I would be mentoring young people, and young people would ask me, I had a very talented account manager. She's in her early 20s. She's like 23. And she's like, what am I supposed to say to these people? These are PhDs, this is my first job ever. I just graduated college. And like, you got to realize they're not looking at you that way. They're looking at their divorce and, bad investments and all this stuff. And they see you and they're like, look at this young woman with her whole life ahead of her.
Yeah.
Look at her working for this tech company. Like, she's so put together. She's so like, oh, I would love to be her. I've got all these responsibilities right now. This young woman seems pretty on the ball, and again, it's not because you're sitting there explaining all these things that you can teach them. It's like, you notice them and you're interested in them and you're helpful and you're professional. That's what they're going to notice about you. And half of that is just because you're looking at the lens. This is going to you, what you're asking earlier about, like, what's the thing that people do wrong? They look at their appearance on screen when really you should be looking at the lens.
Yeah.
If you're looking at yourself, you're going to get self-conscious. You're going to get distracted. Your eyes get these little micro movements because you're looking very subtly back and forth at different things. And, if you're looking straight at the lens, you just look so confident. And, you're selling the conversation. not the product. You're an interested professional person who's interested in chatting with them. And that's what this is. It's like, once you get the green light, once they let you in, once you get your presentation, go nuts, go do your homework, go get your case studies, go run the numbers, go make that business case. But right now you got to have some sort of human spark in there before they let you anywhere near their budget.
Yeah. And, I think that in the last couple of years, obviously, when we were all separated from each other in one way or another, we lost a lot of closeness with people. There's an incredible difference in the way that many and most of us go to work virtually now. And so it's a natural adaptation of the in-office environment to interact over the screen, but it still has a range of ways it can be done well. There's ways that, yes, it can be done, but I like how you share how to create that very warm, very client-focused, very, humanized way of coming across on the camera. And what's interesting to me is that a few years ago, if you'd asked me if I'd ever jump on a camera, the answer would have been absolutely not. But my family and I ended up moving right before the pandemic. So not only were we locked away like everybody else, but we weren't anywhere near family anymore. We moved 2 months before the lockdown. So video really did become the way that we related to our family and friends. And I don't know if it weren't for getting those reps in, if I would have kept doing it and then eventually did it for business. But I was surprised at every time I would send a video message eventually to a client, almost always they would say, "Wow, I've never received a video before. This is so cool. How do you do that?" And what that tells me is that at least in healthcare, at least in the medical side of things, medical sales specifically, that learning to do this well will make you an absolutely outlier. It will make you an outlier in this business. There are other industries that have gravitated toward video more rapidly. Healthcare is not one of them.
Well, actually, I'm going to push back on you there because I've actually been doing a little research this week that is very surprising to me. So I've been reaching out to hundreds of account executives and SDRs this week, and I've been asking them 2 questions.
Okay.
Say, 1, does your organization use video in their outbound sales? And 2, how many videos each week is the average rep making? The numbers are very surprising to me. Most organizations are sending fewer than 3 videos per week per rep. That's the ones who are the average sales rep is probably not even sending 5 videos every month, and I was kind of blown away by this, but the more I'm talking to them, the more it seems like what happened was 2021 happened. Everybody went remote. Everybody had these video solutions that COVID was very good to the video companies, some of whom I love and use and endorse. And then they just kind of stopped. They tried it for a couple months and then they stopped. And as a coach, and I could say this, it's because they're bad at it. Like what happened is,
but we love you anyway.
We love you anyway. You've got to learn, but no, and it's not even their fault, Right. You look at some of these people who are really killing it, who are at the top of their sales game, who could run a presentation with anybody, cold call anybody, cold email anybody, and perform above average. Ask them if they learned that in a month. I guarantee you they didn't. They tried a completely new type of sales outreach with no coaching, no playbooks, no guidance, and they gave up because they made 10 videos and it didn't succeed. And I tell them, I'm like, you would never, ever in a million years let an SDR tell you, hey, I made 10 cold calls and didn't get through. I guess cold calling doesn't work. You would tell them, right, go make more cold calls, or let me help you make better cold calls, and it's like, actually what I'm discovering, and this was my hunch all along, what I'm discovering is every sales team has a video star, and it's often not the top closer on the team. The person who is the top cold caller and cold emailer is
Mm-hmm.
usually not the best person on video. And I say good listeners are good on video, that empathy shines through. Or if you get performers, people who are actors, people who are dancers, artists, that person who is good at connecting with an audience, they've got different skills that actually translate really well on video. So, yeah, in most industries, sellers are not doing video. You will stand out. You will be different. And if you really want to stand out and be among the top 1% of elite video sellers,
yes,
you'll do what I do, which is what nobody else does, and you'll caption your videos. That is my secret sauce too. Again, we talked earlier about the sales reps who just send the product demo and they're just describing what's on screen. They're not using captions. My videos are me sitting here just like this, calmly, professionally speaking to the audience, but the captions are burned into the video file. So you can read the captions as you're watching the video. And I say, this is what I call the Uber test. But I go, imagine you're trying to sell to a medical professional and they're riding in the backseat of an Uber to an airport and they get 2 videos in their inbox. One is a 5-minute product demo with no captions, and the other is a 30-second video from me, and you can see in the preview that the captions are burned onto the screen. And it says, hey, Claire, one thing I wanted to, and the message cuts off. Which one do you think they're going to watch? Are they going to take out their earbuds so they can watch your 5-minute presentation? Or are they going to check out this short video because they can read it and they can watch with the sound off? Yeah. And I'm like, you don't understand, like, sometimes they want to watch the video and it's just not convenient. They can't do it. Or you think of like a parent, you've got like a sleeping baby, on your knee and you're sitting there just scrolling through because you don't want to wake the baby up.
Right.
And there's the video there. It's like, are you going to softly turn on the sound? Are you going to fish out your headphones or are you going to ignore it? And I'm not an accessibility expert. That's another thing I kind of accidentally, like, I get a lot of clients from the accessibility world, which is another one that's famous for being a really technical, it's firmly like in the DEI space. So it's thought of this very serious and important topic for very serious and important people. And yeah, the more I started just captioning my stuff, the more I got all these deaf fans because they're like, oh, wow, most of the content we see on LinkedIn doesn't have captions. If somebody's sending them a prospecting video, it doesn't have captions. They got to try to lip read. Yeah. And, the more I do this, the more I was severely underestimating how many people suffer from hearing loss. It's a pretty sizable part of the country. And once I learned that, I'm like, oh yeah, my dad uses a hearing aid. I didn't even think about that. But again, it's like you send a video to him, it's after hours when he's looking at it. He's not going to be able to hear it unless he gets his hearing aid in. That's too much work to ask of him. And I tell people and they're like, well, I don't have time to caption my videos. I go, okay, well, you had time to send that 5-minute screen share. You did all the work to get that video out there. There are free programs like CapCut, which is a popular editing program for the iPhone, for phones. So people edit a lot of their TikTok videos. That has auto captions built into there. Like literally you press the auto transcribe button and then you go through and you fix the typos. You just you capitalize the names, you fix the spelling, and it takes you 2 minutes. And again, they're not going to be getting a sales video, but if they are getting a sales video, it probably doesn't have captions. So you show up, you're relevant, you're looking professional, you're well framed, and it's got the words on the screen. So it's a reading experience while it's a watching experience and while it's an auditory experience. You're getting that message to them on all levels. And, again, I'm like that Uber ride might have been your one chance. You had them there. They were there. They were looking through their inbox. If you delivered a 30-second message in the way that was most convenient for them to consume it, they would have watched 100% of it. Like you'd be in, you got into their head, you got into their consciousness, you've established yourself as a relevant person. But Most people don't take the time to do that. They send off the same generic email that they sent to 100 people, and they're like, well, I got 3 responses. 2 of them were take me off your list, but hey, maybe this one person. And again,
Right.
is that really the first impression you want?
Right. And because it's documented, it'll be the last impression as well. Right. So like you were saying before, if we've all had those opportunities presented to us in the DMs or in our email, and it just wasn't the right time. And then 6 months later, you think, oh yeah, that one, he was talking about leads. Let me go back and look. And it can either be your best salesperson right there. Your video is your best salesperson 24/7, or something that's maybe what everybody else is saying too. I think that's what strikes me so much about video is that we have mastered and tweaked and found all the different ways that we can write something, right? There are so many brilliant ways of persuasion in writing, but video is still largely unknown for most people. Most people haven't tried it. So even just getting those early reps in, giving it a shot, focusing on your customer, like Chris is sharing, is really going to help to make you stand out, even if it's not perfect. But the more that you try it, it seems like it comes, it gets more comfortable.
Yeah. Go the next time you're scrolling through Facebook or Instagram or your newsfeed, watch how many giant brands have ads where they're just like, whoa, hey, we're all just hanging out here at and like they're trying to look like a regular person because that's what people trust.
Right.
They don't trust the media. They don't trust politicians. They don't trust institutions. Sometimes it would be nice if they trusted experts more, but they don't. And they trust the people they interact with on a daily basis. And if you're here, you're in that circle of people. I think
go ahead. So I think something you mentioned to me that really struck home the other day when we were chatting was when you said there's only one screen, right? I mean, we've got one phone that we're looking at, and it's a few inches across and a few inches high. And we're all competing for the exact same screen with whomever's holding that phone, whether it's sales, entertainment, infotainment, pictures of their kids, the weather, whatever it is, it's all right here. That's it. And so when you have the chance to get on someone's screen, that means you're doing it in place of all the other things, right? In a place where they're already so comfortable. So I don't know why that just really sunk in for me the other day.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad it did. I mean, you're a great example of that too, because I know you mostly from your LinkedIn content. Same. And it's very good. It's very good. I always look at you. You always, again, it looks more professional than most of what I see on that platform. And a lot of it is just because like you have a compelling personality. You're looking to the camera and speaking with confidence. And it's like, you look like a person who knows what they're talking about. And it's funny because a lot of the people you're selling to might be more accomplished than us, but they're not as good at that, And it was this irony where it was like, I was speaking to these elite professors, sometimes at like Ivy League universities. And all of a sudden they couldn't connect with their students anymore, and their shot was a mess. And their, the camera angle was terrible and the lighting was terrible and they weren't looking in the right place. And it's like, okay, well, this person is smarter and wealthier and more well-credentialed and connected than me. An audience wouldn't know that. If they just saw the two of us, they'd be like, oh, that guy must be the smart guy because look at how professional he looks, I have a saxophone in my background. I'm not good at it, but there's a million saxophone players who are amazing and they never go out there on camera and play saxophone. So who's the audience? Like, who are they going to think is the musician? Me, who they can see has a saxophone, or that person who never puts themselves out there?
I'm hoping that after this show, people think that I'm a real artist.
Well,
Actually, but
yeah.
that's a brilliant point. I mean, it's funny. I used to always joke with my coworkers. They'd say, "Claire, you're always wearing something to talk about." I'd always have like something where if I was carrying a bag, I would make it a college alumni alma mater bag, or maybe my Chi Omega bag. Go Chi Omega. And or I'd wear like shoes with like, I've got these ridiculous Uggs and they're bedazzled like crazy from when my girlfriend, I thought that was a really great idea when we were Black Friday shopping a few years ago, but always something, because I love starting conversations on a very, low pressure level. Oh my gosh, I love your shoes. Or, hey, great. Oh, you went to Ohio University. And so I feel like the way that you have your sax in the background is something so memorable, and it's always there. We can come to expect it. And it's a great conversation piece. I think it's great. It's strategic to have it there.
Yeah, you've stumbled upon something. This is not an accident. Everything you see in my shot is designed for a prospect to be like, oh, Chicago. I spent some time in Chicago. Yeah. Oh, you're a Simpsons fan. Oh, you're a board game player. The shot kind of tells a story before I've said anything, and again, it's like a lot of what you aren't saying is powerful, and if you haven't, you should make a note. As you were talking, I was like, oh, Claire should really make a video about that. You should really have a video where you've got something attention grabbing on, and like how you purposely like work conversation starters into there.
I should. That's a great idea.
I think of it as like, I always said in sales, it's like purposely leaving a thread dangling out of your shirt. And I'm just waiting for a prospect to pull. And then it's like, yeah, you just let them pull and pull and pull, and the trick I always used to do back, I don't cold call anymore. I did the video thing. I went all in. I'm like, all right, I'm the video guy. So not cold calling. I'm not cold emailing anymore on video. But my trick when I was cold calling was I would always talk about food. Would always talk about food. This still works. If any cold callers are in the audience. Oftentimes cold callers are trained to ask, how have you been? That's a popular cold caller question is how have you been? Oftentimes people say, oh, I'm fine. How have you been? And whenever anybody would ask me that, I would always say something about food. I would say, like, back when I'd be in the office, I'd be like, you know what? Someone brought donuts in this morning and I am trying to resist the break room.
Oh, so
wish
good.
Me luck, and again, I've given them a point of view and I'm just going to see what they do with it. Or I'd be like, somebody would tell me, they'd be like, oh yeah, how's your morning going? I'd be like, you know what? I ate Girl Scout cookies for breakfast. So that's my answer, make of that what you will. And then sometimes they're like, oh, I love the Thin Mints, and now they're talking about their feelings about it. Or with the donuts example, be like, oh, try to not eat those donuts. You get maybe somebody's struggling with their weight and they're like, oh gosh, me too. Or maybe they're a health nut and they're like, you know what? Good for you. You can do it. You can. And like, whatever it is, what I actually did was I just told them a little micro story that's 5 seconds long. And I got them to be on my side. Like, we don't know where that story's going. We don't know, am I going to eat the donuts or am I not? But all of a sudden they're kind of rooting for me. And I'm like, by the way, would you mind if I mention why I'm reaching out? And what are they going to do? Slam the phone and be like, no, it's like, they're like, sure.
You donut eating swindler.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that some of that strategy comes from your, and if you haven't met Chris and you're not following him by now, make a note, do it immediately and come back to this conversation. But Chris has also got roots in comedy and improv. So do you feel like some of what you learned in improv, it helped humanize it and keep you to sticking to the real things that bind us, like eating donuts or trying to avoid them?
Yeah. So improv is a huge part of what I do. And I'm nervous about bringing that up because I say improv and people instantly think I want them to go be funny. And one thing I always say as an improv trainer, especially if I'm working with new improvisers, people have never done it before, I do an exercise where I go, breathe in. Now breathe out the need to be funny. We are not telling jokes out here. I do not want you to tell me jokes. Because what happens with jokes is when you're like, oh, I'm going to tell you a funny joke.
Yes.
There's an inclination not to laugh at it, and in improv, you don't tell jokes, you play games. And you're trying to find these moments where you and the other person are bouncing off of each other. And one thing they actually teach you in improv that I actually do in sales, which is, again, cutting against sales orthodoxy, is in improv, they say, don't ask questions. You're making a move, you're initiating a move, but you're not asking questions. When you ask a question in improv, you're stealing information from your partner and you're forcing them to do something interesting. You're putting pressure on them, so I'm always trying to find something where we're kind of like collaborating together. And the food is just an example of that. I made a very specific observation about a very specific thing that they're going to have an opinion about because we all have to eat, and now no matter what they say, we're kind of playing off each other,
Yes.
And that's even a thing too, where it's like, oftentimes, and especially in medical sales or something where referrals are your best friends, a lot of times I have a name drop, and a lot of times it's like, hey, I'm actually reaching out to you. I wanted to talk to you about some of the work I've been doing with Dr. Davis, over in this practice or something. Especially if that's a name I know they're going to recognize, I don't exactly know how they're going to react to that, but however they do react to that is going to tell me a lot,
Right.
And back when I was in higher education technology, I was getting all this training about like, oh, this challenger sale, why don't you go in there and show them you have all the secret knowledge that they don't know about critical thinking? Well, actually what I do is I get them to tell me about critical thinking. I get them to tell me a story, when I'm like, when they're telling me about what they did today, like that's so important. And I actually usually, I try to get them to tell me about something that happened earlier today. I'm going to ask a question. I'm like, oh, how'd your morning go? Because if I ask them questions like, what are the 3 top priorities of your organization? They've got the answer for that. They've got the answer for that already. So, like one thing I would do when I was talking to college professors, I'd be like, oh, how'd class go today? And be like, oh, all right. I'd say, did you get any good questions? And they'd stop and they'd be like, you know what? I did get one question today. A student, they asked me blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what I've actually done is I've made them the performer now. They're telling me a story and I can bounce off them. I can play off of them. And, improv is all about setting the other person up to look good. It's all about, can I put my partner in a situation where they look smart, where they look cool, where they look funny, but if I want to get on someone's side during a sale, I'm going to set them up so they get the hilarious line.
Yeah.
Yep. Because if they're the one who gets the laugh, if they feel smart and they feel validated and they feel supported, again, it's like that Maya Angelou quote, like they won't remember what they said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. Yeah. And it's like every time they're talking to you, they feel smart, they feel heard, they feel understood. Like that's what you need to get them to not ignore you when you pick up the phone, when you knock the door, when you send that email. And yeah, it's just, I always want to create this thing where it's like, every time they talk to me, they feel like it's fun. They feel smart. They don't feel disrespected. And it's because I like people and I have a lot of respect for people. And I believe that I have something to learn from everybody. And
where can they learn more about you and connect with you and maybe check out your course on how to do video well?
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for teeing it up. So if your audience is interested in following me, the best way to do that is to go on LinkedIn, look up Chris Bogue and ring my bell. So there's a bell feature on LinkedIn. I'm a creator. I'm posting new content every day, posting new comedic sketches every week. I talk a lot about sales and video, how to be confident on video, how to do it efficiently and quickly, how to caption your videos. So I give free knowledge away on LinkedIn every day. And I'm a chatty Cathy. So come shoot me a DM, shoot me a connection request. I love talking to people on LinkedIn. And yeah, if you want to take your video to the next game, I have a course that I sell online. So it is it's called The Complete Guide to Selling on Video. You can find that at chrisbogue.io. So again, this is not something they're going to teach you at business school. It's not even something they're going to teach you if you get, a program like BombBomb or Vidyard or Drift. They'll teach you how to use the features. They won't teach you how to create a human connection on video, So the complete guide, it is fast, but thorough. I really broke it down. It's broken down into 6 modules. So we cover the on-camera performance. Where do you put the lights? Where do you put the camera? We build the sales strategy. There's LinkedIn growth and a LinkedIn connection strategy in there, downloadable materials for your lead list. And then it's, script writing. So there's different ways to talk to somebody versus somebody you don't know. There's language in there. How do you ask for referrals? How do you get stuff in the mid pipeline to actually show up to the meeting? And then it ends with the outbound. So I show editing. I show how I do batch footage. So I shoot a lot of videos in one sitting. And then I show you how I edit it, how I caption it. And then it ends with sending it on LinkedIn versus Gmail. So you made the video. How do you actually get someone to watch it and respond to it and take action? The complete guide selling on video that retails for $249. And you can find that at chrisbogue.io.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for creating that. You guys, I've taken it. It's an excellent course and I've taken a lot of courses, but I have to say, Chris, the way that you broke it down and made it very easy. There's no overtures. There's no overproduction. It's just straightforward advice, real advice, and it's really easy to listen to and to take in what you share. So thank you so much for making it and for making it the way that you did. It's very easy to digest and then practice and use. And you guys, he even has sections where he'll count down so you can do mini practice runs. So it's very easy to do. And I, for one, have it playing while I'm driving my kids back and forth to school. And I can focus on it and practice when I have it in my ear. And it's been really, really helpful. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Clara.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being with me today. It's so nice to catch up with you. And I hope everybody listening gives video a chance and connect with Chris, check out his course, and give it a try, because, one thing I don't want to glaze over that Chris mentioned earlier is that video is here to stay. And if you want to get good at video, you've just got to start somewhere, and you can be an outlier in, a few months of trying, and even in a year from now, you will absolutely amaze yourself at how confident you can feel by getting the reps in, just like anything else. And if you want to have if you want to go back and watch your videos from a year ago, don't worry. We're all having that cringe moment where we're like, oh God, I said that. I can't believe I did that. So don't worry. That's all normal too. So thank you all for joining. It's so great to see you, Chris. And until next time, thanks for watching today's Medical Sales Leader. Bye-bye.
It was great to be here. Thank you.